When can we start planting the spring? That's the big question. I'm 5 News Chief Meteorologist Matt Standridge. You get a couple warm days, you think, hey, maybe I can start putting the plants out, doing a little refresh in the front yard and the flower beds, maybe starting to plant that vegetable garden out back. However, we've got to be very careful about these cold outbreaks that can come in at any time. We're in that weird part of the year where more warm days are taking place rather than cold days, especially in the mid-central part of the country. But we've got to watch these cold blasts. So when can you start planting? Well, generally we go off the average last spring freeze date. When's the last time we're going to hit about 32? There are actually 3 types of freezes. We're going off of a light freeze. A light freeze right around 30, 31, 32 degrees. The threat for tender plants being killed is pretty high. However, you go lower than that, let's say temperatures are around 26 to 27 to 28, that's a hard freeze. Those dates will take place a little bit sooner as temperatures are a little bit colder, closer into winter. But during those times, a lot of vegetation will get killed. But then a killing freeze, that happens when temperatures drop to about 24 degrees, and that's when we lose pretty much everything. Usually that killing freeze is the last thing that just kind of does it as you go from fall into winter. But this is going off the last light freeze. You can see across the country, we've got our color scale here. Farther south you go, the more humid you are, the earlier that takes place. We're going to take just a little bit of a tour. We'll start in the Northeast talking about some of these dates. In the Northeast, it should take us a little bit longer. Now we've got great maple syrup sugary process going on right now from Lake Erie right into the Adirondacks around Lake Ontario. Our average last freeze date is closer to May. So it's going to be still a couple months. You got to watch out. Some of these cold outbreaks can still clip us in the Northeast. You head farther south and east, though. Some of us already this spring, we're safe, especially right along the Gulf Coast. You head a little bit farther north into parts of Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi. We're kind of in that mid-March time frame, mid to late March. So maybe wait another week or two, and then you probably will be okay. Of course, averages are averages. There are several times we get temperatures to be pretty cold going even into May. So that can change things, but on average, you're pretty safe in middle to late March. Throughout the south central United States, Texas, along the coast, we've already had our time that we can start planning from Houston southbound. You get closer to Dallas, we're right at that cusp. You may start thinking about putting the plants out, doing a refresh on the landscaping, but the farther north and west you go where it's drier. You know, sometimes we get really hot here in the Panhandle, back towards West Texas, but we can also get really cold because there's just not a lot of humidity in the atmosphere. And so we've got to wait a little bit longer towards April for the Panhandle of Texas. Now for Arkansas and eastern Oklahoma, much of the River Valley and central Arkansas into southern Arkansas, about late March is when you probably should wait. It's when we generally get our last spring freeze date. You go a little bit farther north in the Boston Mountains, we're closer to about early April. But I tell you what, when you get into Washington County, Benton County, Carroll County, and Madison County, some of us have to wait till late April, about April 16th, 17th, then we should be good. So we still got a couple weeks just to be safe. You can gamble, you may win. We may have some really nice weather the next couple of weeks, but we may have to wait just a little bit longer the farther north you go. This is really influenced by the Ozarks. That Ozark Plateau keeps us just a little bit cooler on average throughout northern Arkansas. You expand back towards the north, we go back to more of those April dates and sometimes even May once you go towards the northern plains and you're touching the Canadian border. Back towards the north and west, the terrain is all over the place, so temperatures really range here throughout the Rockies, but a lot of us have to wait till May. You have a little bit of a break, though, if you're within a couple miles of the coast because the Pacific Ocean moderates us a little bit. Of course, the ocean water temperatures are really cold, but you get closer to the coastline, we're more talking about April, and into California, it ranges big time. From Southern California right up towards Napa Valley area. A lot of us are already good, but once you get farther up into the terrain, you head into the Sierra Nevada, that's when we have to really wait towards May. Of course, higher elevations in the mountains, of course, you just got to wait a little bit longer. Some of us still have some snow in the Rockies and the Sierras. So generally, a lot of us in the deep south, we're good, but a lot of the mid-country, really across the U.S. heartland, we've got to wait maybe just a couple more weeks, and then we should be safer moving forward. Specifically, though, in western Arkansas and eastern Oklahoma, we've done the math and looked at several different locations. This is going in order from earliest to latest. Clarksville, Fort Smith, a lot of us in the River Valley are mid to late March, so we're just about to that time period. However, some of our towns are really interesting on how they're sitting in the terrain. For example, Waldron, one of our farthest south cities, has to wait towards April 8th because right there in the Ouachitas, right in the northern fringes of the Ouachitas, we can get pretty chilly there in the valleys around Waldron. Same story for Boonville, April 4th. Northwest Arkansas would usually have to wait just a little bit later, mid-April, some of us early April, depending on where you live. Fayetteville is just a little bit colder just because of some of the valleys next to the Boston Mountains. Fayetteville's nestled against those northern fringes of the mountains, so we're just a little bit cooler generally than Bentonville at times. But otherwise, we're almost there. Almost there. No, we got the itch. You're just driving around and you see the hardware stores, some of the big box stores. They already got their plants ready to go, trying to sell them. Now you can go ahead and start, of course, the indoor stuff and maybe get that ready before you plant it outside. But I would probably wait just a touch longer until we can start planting in that front flower bed or maybe in the garden out back. I tell you what, spring is just about here. Can't wait for it.